This is Marivonne de Vaart and Christy Ray, and they are my colleagues and fellow PhD candidates. And over the summer and into the fall, we implemented 2 new digital technology installations at the Allard Pearson Museum in Amsterdam. The Allard Pearson Museum is an archaeology museum associated with the University of Amsterdam. We have about 30 staff members total and about 80,000 visitors per year. And these 2 installations that we installed, they come out of 2 EU projects, VMIST and MESH, which I'm sure you've heard about at other points during this conference. And one project is an iPad augmented reality application, and that comes from Fraunhofer through VMIST. And the other project is a spatial augmented reality, which comes from the University of Bordeaux, also through VMIST, but the research is done by both MESH and VMIST. So the spatial augmented reality uses a very tiny leap sensor that follows your finger and hand movements. And so what we did is we took an Egyptian stele, and we have a colorized version of that the curator created, and a projector projects the colorized version onto the stele, but only to the area where you're pointing, so it becomes like a flashlight beacon of colorized version overlay. The iPad, what we do is the visitor simply holds the iPad over the object, and then an overlay appears. And so you can see me looking at a mummy, and then an overlay appears that in this case has scans, head reconstructions, and some information. And behind the scenes, the museum, we took photos of all the objects and created these overlay layers. And the point of this talk and the difference between these 2 installations is that this iPad application is a very do-it-yourself technology. It was given to us by the developer, and then we chose the objects, we created the content, we implemented it. The spatial augmented reality, on the other hand, came with the developer. He flew in, he installed it for us, and he did most of the troubleshooting and setting up. So. You can see here the website that we built the augmented reality iPad application on, just adding and dropping pictures into overlays and targets. So what does this working in beta really mean for a museum, especially in terms of do-it-yourself technology versus this black box? And we've come up with a couple of very interesting conclusions thus far, though it's still very much in progress. And first is that it's very international. We have 2 native English speakers and a native Dutch speaker working in programs in French, German, and Italian, which is fun at times. It's also, financially trying to communicate, bringing people in, going places. It can be difficult, and there's so many uncertainties in terms of, will these programs actually work out in our exhibitions? We're publicizing these, we're saying that we're going to do them, but until the day before or the day of, in actually both places, we were kind of not quite sure if it was going to work. And obviously there are consistent errors and failures, changes we have to make. And through this entire process, we had just always stop and consider how much time and how much money and how much work is this really worth to change things or continue investing. Because it is time consuming. I devoted most of the summer to the iPad application. Meryl devoted most of her summer to the spatial augmented reality. And we came up with good products, but it was still, was always that uncertainty built in as well. And then additionally, we were dealing with other people's products, other people's equipment. No, the Leap isn't that expensive, but the computers behind it are. The iPads, we were renting at first. So we had these security concerns of how to keep things safe, both in terms of protecting it, the content, and the programs behind it. And then the bigger question behind it all is, what is this going to mean for visitors? How do we install this new technology and say, by the way, this is just an experiment. We hope you're okay with that, and what their response would be. So looking at the do-it-yourself technology, which was the iPad, it had some very good bonuses and benefits to it. It didn't require any extreme technology knowledge. I mean, I'm an archaeologist by training. I don't design, I don't know anything about programming, but I was still able to implement it, make the content using Photoshop. It didn't require extra equipment. It was done pretty much just by me, though, with the curator to give me content. And one of its major advantages is from that website, you can store the programs, you can store the pictures, it has tons of space that you can just do this over and over again. You can build programs on the fly if you wanted to, you can save them for future use, and once you know how to do it once, you can do it again and again, easier and easier. However, many things couldn't really be done until the very end. The way the iPad worked was when you took the picture, the program then recognized the picture you took. So if you were going to say do a picture of me, you would take it right here, and then if I picked up this computer, that picture of me is now different and the program wouldn't recognize it. So we had to wait till the lighting was in place. We had to wait till all the ladders and paint cans were out of the exhibition, which really meant on the last day I was still taking some final pictures. We also weren't very good, because it was such in testing and very new, about figuring out how to implement it into the exhibition, and that was definitely one of our faults. So we tested the success rates of the application with the users, and one, for example, was a sarcophagus fragment that had a 100% success rate. Everybody who tried it was able to get the augmented reality layer. However, it was sort of like half a room behind where the iPad stands were, and nobody walked back to see if that object was really one that could be used, so they didn't really get to experience it. With the black box, on the other hand, it had a very different sets of pros and cons. It was very specialized knowledge, multiple computers running different operating systems that I don't even know. It was a much higher cost in terms of bringing the developer here, the things we had to buy, but it also resulted in a very tighter collaboration. The developer was much more invested in making sure it really worked for us before they got back on that plane. And the developer had to be involved with problem solving, whereas he didn't necessarily have to be once the iPad application was in our hands. But it was more time consuming, involved more expensive equipment. It's not something that you could just be like, hey, I want to put this in an exhibition tomorrow, which you could with the iPads if you really wanted to. But we felt that it maybe created a better product because we really spent more time and thought on one single aspect and object. And from here, I'm going to pass it over to Meryl, who will talk about the visitor side.
Thank you. Yeah, so for us as a museum, it required a very different way of working. We had to be very agile, very kind of quick to respond to different changes. We would have to be happy with trying stuff out on the spot, which is not something that we usually do. Usually we want to deliver a finished product when we finish an exhibition. And we had some concerns with regards to our visitors when we were implementing this. And one was that we have quite a large proportion of kind of slightly older visitors. They're not old, but they're kind of in the older cohort, and often that's associated with people kind of being a bit hesitant to trying new tech. And of course the Leap Motion, it was really new. We had to kind of first use the programmer's own Leap that was kind of a developer's one, because it wasn't actually shipped over to us yet. So that's how new it was, and nobody had actually really used it, so we were worried that that was a problem for our visitors, that they would be a bit hesitant in using the new technology. And we thought the iPads would be easier for them, for example, because more people are used to using iPads. And we were also worried that maybe the lower aesthetic quality might kind of scare some people, that they would feel that it wasn't good enough, or that would kind of be detrimental to the visitor experience. And of course we weren't sure what would happen with the systems, and if they would be unstable, and how much downtime there would be, and visitors wouldn't be able to use them. So we did audience research, and we did questionnaires and observations on gallery after we opened. And we found out that actually, with regards to our concerns with our visitors not being able to use the technology, we were wrong. You can see here the total take-up of the Leap Motion kind of installation, and you can see it divided by age group, and you can see that the older groups kind of use it slightly less, but I think a take-up of over 60% for the 65 plus age group is still really, really good. We were very happy with that. And you can see here that the vast majority had never used Leap Motion. 3 people weren't sure, 1 person said they had used it before. So a lot of them were unfamiliar with the technology, but they were happy to use it and give it a go. Where actually, with the installation that used iPads, you can see that the usage is a lot lower, fewer people used it. And you can see that actually the people that were 27 to 49-year-olds used it a lot more than the other age groups. However, of the people who used it, you can see that still quite a large portion of them had never used an iPad before and were still happy to pick it up and figure it out. So for us that was really positive, that they weren't scared by the technology, that they're actually happy to try stuff out, and that it's very much more about how you present it and how you explain to them what it does and what they're going to get out of it. And if they know that what they're going to get out of it is interesting, they're happy to invest the kind of effort in trying to figure out how it works, or using something that they're not familiar with. So then going to the expectation of, or the quality aspect that we're worried about, we asked people about the installations. We thought we were very clear in saying that they were experiments. However, most people were not aware that they were experiments. And we said, do you think an experiment should be of the same quality as the rest of the exhibition content? And the vast majority said yes, it should, which for us, of course, is a bit tricky, because if you're building stuff on the fly and testing it embedded, then it's not as perfect as the rest of your exhibition. However, we also asked them about the two installations and what their opinions were on them. And you can see here, we asked them, like, did you think it looked good? Was it easy to use? Was it quick? Was it accurate? And do you think it's a positive addition to the exhibition? That's the last column. And you can see the vast majority of people are very positive, actually, about the installations. Even on points where we thought, well, we could have done this better. This was still a bit wobbly, or, you know, we have to work on this. For the iPad applications, still, I think for us, easy to read, and it responded to the movements quickly. For us, we were, especially with some objects, it was really hard to get the kind of content on the screen, and you had to wait really long. So for us, we were like, it's not good enough for us yet, but still, a lot of our visitors were actually okay with it. So we found that really interesting, that if you ask people, do you expect high quality, they will say yes, but maybe what they see as high quality and what we perceive to be high quality might be different, or actually when you give them something that they're actually okay with it. So that was good to see. And with regards to the unstable system, we found out that we wrote instructions, troubleshooting instructions for our front of house staff, so the people who were on gallery doing the lecture. They're security, but they're also there to talk to people and to explain things. And we wrote instructions for them, and we asked them to kind of check the installations regularly and to do the troubleshooting if needed. And they were really, really great with that. And I think that meant that although they had to reset the systems quite often, because they were so on top of it, it didn't affect the visitor. So that was for us a really positive point, and we were really pleased, of course, that they were so kind of cooperative and they did that for us. And when it comes to kind of minor hiccups, so sometimes the beam that was shown on the Stella was a bit shaky, people will try again, it's okay. If they can't get the overlay straight away, that's okay, they will try again. However, one of the objects, the mummy, which was, it's a kind of difficult shape, and it was really hard for the system to recognize the mummy and to project the overlay. And we noticed that if that failed, if people couldn't get that overlay, they would be so disappointed they would just put it away and they wouldn't try any further. So there's kind of that balance between what people kind of put up with and are okay with, and they keep going, and overall it's a positive experience. And there's a point where, you know, you lose them because it's not good enough. So that's something for us to kind of work on, I think. So our conclusion overall is definitely go test and play, try things out. Technology is a tool, but in order to understand how it works and what you can do with it and how you can use it, you really have to get your hands dirty and play with it and try things out. And you have to try things out on your visitors, because often for us, for example, Lauren would be making the overlays, and it would be so easy for her. Look, the mummy, you know, was really easy. And if we would give the same iPad to somebody who'd never done it before, they weren't able to do it. So you can't be your own test audience. You really have to try it out with your visitors. And what's also very important, a really big lesson for us, I think, is usually when we finish an exhibition, it's, you know, we take a holiday and we start the next project. And here, when you finish an exhibition and you're working in beta, that's when the work starts. Because you have to be on gallery all the time, you have to see how your visitors are responding, you have to see, you know, rewrite your instructions, you know, change things, change some overlays. So it's really, that's when your work starts, and you have to really schedule that in. And we really benefited from good collaboration with the partners that we worked with, and I think that's also really important. You can't just expect them to give something to you and then you run with it. You really have to work together. They know what works, what doesn't work. So we were a bit stubborn sometimes with the overlays. We were told, don't do 3D objects because they're really hard. And we thought, well, we have such amazing information about the mummy. So we put it in anyways, and actually the mummy was really hard for people to use. So listen to what they say as advice and really kind of follow their lead, but also be really clear about what you need as a museum and what you want to achieve with the product. Because, as I said, in the end, the technology is a tool, and it's not the means it's not the end is the means to an end. So yeah, really work closely together on that. So this is a really quick whiz through of some of the results. We've got tons more, but we'll leave it at this for now. Please feel free to contact us on our email addresses or chat to us over the Christmas dinner or something like that. So, thank you.